a very different vibe. I called this Neptune because, hashtag Mercury retrograde. Neptune conjunct Venus, which is just hard for my mouth to say for some reason. I'm going to call on Sonia to start this because I always go to Sonia whenever I have Neptune questions. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I've been recently studying Austin Coppock's Decan course, and for him this occurs in the third Decan, and he's teaching us to look at the Vedic Decan classifications as well as the Chaldean ones that we usually use. And this Decan is double Mars, but it's the 10 of Cups in tarot. So there's like a, what would you call it? A
completion.
Yeah, a completion there, but also an initiation as well with double Mars.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the bound. It's funny to have like the last decan of Pisces be Mars, and then the first decan of Pisces be Aries.
Yeah,
it's like that final end of the year to push us through to be able to be reborn. You don't necessarily associate Mars as like a Piscean thing, but Pisces have passion just as much as any of the others.
Yeah, I think that's why I was just questioning my notes there. It's like, is that right? But yeah, it's interesting because it's just past Venus's exaltation degree. So she's really on her throne there in Pisces. And that makes me think of the Queen of Cups, the lady just embodying all of that watery wisdom of intuition and just really trusting everything that comes to you through that water and that memory that you were talking about before that comes through Pisces. And then Neptune brings like really that ethereal quality, that otherworldly quality to it. So it's a really beautiful time, but it can have a shadow side of vulnerability and codependency there as well. So there's all those sweet romantic illusions that can come through, but there can also be like disillusion if it's like not built on solid foundations. If there's love coming through, but you've got those rose-tinted glasses on, and when you've got those two planets together, that's a risk. So check in with your friends. If you do have those desires coming through, just make sure that it's grounded, because the archetypes I was looking at here, it was like sacred love as a mystical force, where you really feel the spiritual undertones of a connection, and like tantric love, and like the women that we really put on the pedestal, like the Virgin Holy Mary, and Persephone and women like that. It's not like the darker goddesses. It's really those goddesses that are venerated and seen as beyond the material. So yeah, it's just a lovely time if you want to connect with water at that time. And if you do rituals or anything, it's a really wonderful time to do anything to deepen your connection with Neptune or Venus. I think it's a really beautiful connection and time. And if you've got either of those planets in detriment, it would be a beautiful time to really start working with either of them.
We talk about remediation, and I think that trying to work with a planet when it's at that exaltation is like kind of walking into the throne room and be like, please help me. And you're in the best position of power to help me. One like kind of joking thing, I was like, this would be a great day to start a cult. So be wary of cult adjacent things maybe that you encounter that day. Maybe they have cult tendencies. All joking aside, the shadow of that is just, Neptune has this reputation of just being endless and no boundaries. And any sort of situation where there's Venusian themes, so whether it's relationships or gluttony combined with that endlessness of Neptune, boundaries are good because you see the limits and you know that things are limited, and that is actually a good thing. So you can savor it and value it. If it feels endless, there's kind of a hopelessness or a wandering that maybe you need temporarily, and luckily Venus moves pretty fast. But it also got my attention that even though Libra and Pisces can't see each other through a traditional aspect, Venus rules that south node, and so the south node is still self-noding, even though the eclipse has passed, the solar eclipse is approaching, and so I feel like they might be tied to each other, because that sun will move into the 15th degree, opposing that south node, and just kind of highlighting it again. So those 2 days feel reminiscent of each other, like that maybe south node Libra themes, whatever Libra house is for you, might be related to the Venus-Neptune conjunction, just because Venus rules Libra. Shauna, Janessa, you got anything on this one?
I do, just a little one.
Yeah.
I must be on a delay, I'm sorry. It almost mirrors what's going on with Mercury too, but I thought it was interesting when I'm looking at this chart that we've got both luminaries in a sextile to each other at the moment, but just kind of cuddling that the Venus-Neptune conjunction when it happens. So it feels like because there's no light being shown on whatever's happening at the moment, it can feel, of course, very dreamy. But I feel like it's almost where those dreams are going to get initiated once Mars comes into all of that. Mars hits Saturn, and I feel like it's gonna maybe make some more things concrete. But I think whatever is being born in that Venus-Neptune conjunction is just not gonna show up for a little while, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was noticing that too with the luminaries, and I feel like it kind of doubles down on the Neptune themes of like fog or like cloudiness, not being clear on what's going on. But I guess I kind of see this as like pretty, I see it as pretty malefic. We've got, Mars and Saturn there co-present, kind of, Saturn adding a heaviness, maybe, kind of emphasizing the fogginess as well, with like that, with it being in Pisces. I've heard Austin Coppock talk a lot about Saturn and Pisces for him, like being really depressing. And like, I feel like adding that fog there, like as they approach each other is not helping things. And Venus, being the honored guest in Pisces, like she's not really there to do a lot of work either, right? Like she doesn't have to do like the activities she would have to do in Libra or in Taurus, where it's like her home and she kind of like stewards that. She's just kind of like the guest of honor. And I think I've heard Krista here like talk about like that exaltation role being more of like, I'm here as like a guest visitor. I don't have to do the cooking and cleaning. I don't have to like be responsible for anything. I'm just kind of like here to chill and and be doted on. So she might tend to overindulge, I think, and especially with Jupiter ruling this and Jupiter being in Taurus, there's like big overindulgent vibes that can be dangerous for people struggling with substance abuse. And then Mars there too, like Mars just being generally harmful, I think, kind of paints a not a great picture for this one. And Pluto, Pluto's playing a role, like conjunct the moon there. So yeah, sorry, I don't have like my usual jovial take on that one, but I think it does look kind of like a harmful day or two here with that transit. And luckily Venus moves quickly. But yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents.
Well, and also just noticing that they just moved into the bound of Saturn. And so when you think about bounds, like the rules from which the planet can kind of operate. And so then, okay, well, where's Saturn? Saturn's in Jupiter's bound, and Jupiter's in his own bound. So again, it kind of speaks to the expansive gluttonous potential of that day. And the idea of overindulgence, and how does that translate, not necessarily with food or drink or narcotics. It can be overindulgence in whatever areas are kind of, there is already some seed of disillusionment. So I could see that there's potential for it being kind of a dangerous day for sure. And just thinking about healthy boundaries and waiting, because that's a good thing about Saturn, is that Saturn teaches us the potency of waiting, and that things that you have to wait for generally have a lot more long-lasting effect anyway. So if there was the allure of something, maybe using that moment to just sit and stew under the covers. I like the idea of the luminaries not seeing it, of like just being under the covers and waiting for it to pass, so you can kind of